implants to increase the ocular capacity, your audible hearing and so forth, there will be a lot more. So I agree with you 100%, and I would say that that is another technological trend.
Yeah.
And all of these other factors that we could discuss are important. And to respond specifically to the question, there are two sides of the coin, and it's a conundrum that graces through all of history, and that is whether genetics or environment are controlling factors. They both are.
They both are, obviously. But I don't think brain size it has any relationship to what we do with it. If we need amplification, artificial intelligence is right there. What we're doing with our current brains is not necessarily producing all good things.
We need better software. Software for our brains. Software.
Let me comment
not just size.
You were mentioning at the beginning of the program that there's been an enormous change. What has changed is the enormous cultural change of introducing very large number of new knowledge artifacts that we store and use, new concepts, new vocabulary, new technologies, and so on.
Well, I'll just give you an example of software. Normally in our argument mode, which is one of the most primitive, barbaric methods of thinking, if we change that to parallel thinking, human beings, not machines, a big company in Europe, ABB, used to take 20 days on their multinational project discussions. Using parallel thinking, this 6 hats framework which I designed, they do that instead of 20 days, in 2 days. 2 days. Huge increase in productivity just by using better thinking software. And there's vast areas we can get into to increase our capacity.
What about the role of emotions and feelings? And we're leaving all this out. Shep?
Well, first, just let me address one question, the one about the brain size. The last significant evolutionary change in the human brain occurred 25 to 40,000 years ago, and in spite of the enormity of the input that we have been subjected to, our brain hasn't changed a bit. Emotion. Let me respond to the notion of perception. It seems to me that perception, as you're describing it, really is the interpretation of observations. And the way we perceive really comes from our background, the memories we bring, our emotional state, the stake we have in observing something one way or another, so that the same observation will be interpreted or perceived in many, many different ways. The Greeks, for example, noted that people with cancer became depressed, so they were certain that depression is the cause of cancer. Well, they may turn out to be right, but in any event, this was a mistake in interpreting an observation, therefore a mistake in perception. How do we solve the problem of what people bring to the perception in the first place?
Well, that's the point. You're right. Perception is the aggregate of emotions, experience, where you are at the moment. But we can develop ways, which indeed I get involved in schools, of changing perceptions,
Is it dangerous to program it too carefully?
No, these are just tools which open up a broader scan, and as a result of the broader scan, your emotions change. So I agree with you. They are the result of upbringing, background, chemical levels at the moment, but they're not immutable.
Well, the entire progress of science has been on the basis of changed perceptions of the same observations being made
and
for thousands of years.
That's why I've emphasized hypothesis. Yeah. Hypothesis is perceptual change. And what is sad is in many universities, I've been in Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, and London, how little time is spent on generating hypotheses. How very little time.
Hypotheses certainly guide induction, and inductive logic doesn't give you the hypothesis.
Exactly.
It evaluates the hypothesis.
Exactly.
But
we have to take a prediction. We're fast forwarding 100 years. 100 years from now, what has happened to thinking? Edward?
Every school in the world will be teaching my thinking methods. Kids will be much more productive, much more tolerant of each other, much more able to create value for themselves and for society.
That's clearly a win for you. I'm not sure it's a win for society.
I'm totally altruistic. I don't want any profit from it.
Right.
We'll have better theories about some things. We'll have new tools that we can use. For instance, with the computing power that you have on your desk running a word processor now, you can analyze dynamical systems that nobody could analyze 20 years ago. So I think the possibilities of assisted thinking are going to lead to a lot better predictions of complex systems.
Shep?
I think there'll be an increasing recognition of the basic irrationality of the thought process, the unhampered, unhindered, unchanged thought processes of the modern mind, of the human mind, and a recognition of the necessity for the kinds of changes that we've been talking about here.
Graham?
Well, it strikes me that no matter how much we may talk about the subjective or the theoretical dimensions of existence, there is a more powerful substrate that drives things, and that's the hard sciences and the basic sciences. And in 100 years, by the year 2100 certainly, and probably some few years before, the life sciences will dominate society, and the development of genetic engineering with Dolly and the total description of the human genome being major benchmarks is the opening of a new era for the individuals of this planet Earth to control their own evolution.
Ed,
Eugenics.
You agree with that?
Well, I think I want to focus on thinking. Not only will we have very powerful artifacts in the form of computers and pattern recognition machines to handle the perception, but the building of those will lead to a science of thought which is every bit as rigorous and useful for prediction as we have in chemistry and physics right now.
So how do we assess the last millennium? The smarter we got, it seems, the stupider we acted. The most evil genocides in human history occurred alongside the most advanced science. Rational thinking makes good technology, but our thinking must grow for humanity to prosper. It must be creative and holistic, as well as analytic and diagnostic. Try this combination in your personal life, and your own decision-making will become clearer and better. It's the best thinking that brings us closer to truth. I'm Robert Kuhn.